I actually began in computer science, did a lot of graffiti growing up, came out, started doing motion design for television, so I branded a lot of shows like The Wire, Def Poetry Jam, Oz, Rome, a lot of commercials, and at some point just got burned out and wanted to tell my own stories. Went to the actor's studio, did theatrical directing, and then from there I started making these films. I made a successful short in 2004, premiered at Sundance, did well. And then Patang has been 7 years in the making. So, when I used to see my uncles fly kites when I was a kid, they used to look up at the sky and forget all their tensions, what was happening before or afterwards. So from an early age, I felt that kite flying was a meditation in a very simple form. And so I had this idea of a kite festival as a backdrop. And just a little bit about the kite festival. People take string and they coat it with ground glass, and it's sharp enough to cut each other's kites. So everyone's trying to cut each other's kites. And when I told my cousin about it, he's like, you have to go to Ahmadabad. We're from a different place in India. So when I went there for the first time and saw 1 million kites in the air, and how vital this particular festival was for the transformation of the city in terms of all their personal tragedies or community kind of disputes that were there between Hindus and Muslims or generational, they all disappeared when they were on those rooftops flying those kites and trying to cut each other's kites. We wrote a script. It was based upon a lot of that research that took place. Also a lot of my own family kind of situations when I would go there in terms of family reunions. On both sides of my family, there's a joint family house. And there's a dispute around that house. What's going to happen next? You know, we have to preserve our culture where everyone grew up, and then everyone else, it's more of a liability. Let's move you forward. So that kind of is a central dispute that happens in the film amongst this whole kite festival eventually, centered around one family. So the information came not only from kind of spending times with the kids in the kite shops and getting to know how they work there, to all the intricacies of the community, but also a lot of my own background. You know, for me, it was the poetry of this entire scenario. There's one kite that passes through everybody's hands. There's one central house, and there's a memory of a brother. Then there's 6 characters. So for me, it was a larger metaphor of almost a puppet master of this kite, controlling the destinies of these 6 characters, bringing them closer as the kite flies high, as it's cut and torn a little bit, everyone separates a little bit. But when you look at that, you're basing a narrative on an inanimate object. And so when I look at the overall narrative and you have 6 characters kind of going, a lot of times I'm skipping a little bit of this story because emotionally the other story is taking you to that spot. And so when you're kind of forming this language with the editing, that's kind of tough to. Those are very big things that you have to make decisions on. And as much as Joe Klotz was an amazing person to work with, it was still the 2 years of my life that were so painful, you know, going through it. So what happened earlier in Ahmadabad is that there was a big religious conflict, and 60 Hindus, they had accused that a Muslim group blew up this train. And then at that time, there are accusations that the governor, who's still the governor, allowed revenge to take place. So there's a lot of accusation from many different kind of forces. And so there were 1,200 people that were massacred over the period of 2 days from the Muslim side. And every film that's been made about Ahmadabad, or what people know about Ahmadabad, is this religious conflict. Now what I did is I made a film that's nothing about that. And it was very purposeful. Because when I lived in New York, we can always make films about 9/11, but why? According to me, it's like we love and we laugh and we move on, and how we move on and how we keep those kind of family relationships going or transcend those things is very important. And as I was mentioning earlier, seeing this kite festival and how powerful it was of uniting people across all these boundaries was something spectacular. So I really wanted to do something much more subtle and human and universal, but set in a place that is known for its religious violence and also natural disaster, which if we think about the world right now, whether it's Haiti, whether it's Japan, whether it's the tsunami, whether it's 9/11, there's so much of that conflict, Egypt, you know, going on, that this was just a great microcosm to explore all of that. But rather than saying these are the issues, say, hey, you can actually move forward by celebrating together. And that was the message of the film.